Hello dear friends, welcome to Shiksha Mantra, and today in Shiksha Mantra I am going to discuss something. That's the question from many of my students. Many of my students has asked me, so what's the finite and non-finite verb? Yes dear friend, it's very easy. You know what is finite verb and what is non-finite verb. But when the question arises, which one is finite and which one is non-finite, particularly when you are in a particular sentence and you have to find out whether the verb is finite verb or non-finite verb, most of the time you get confused. And here today I am trying to solve this riddle. Here today I am trying to find out some easy tricks with which you can very easily find out the difference between finite and non-finite verbs. So let's begin our journey. So before we come to the actual discussion, it's better to know what is finite and what is non-finite. And when I discuss about English grammar, I go after the terms. Each and word has a particular story to tell. And if you follow what the word is saying, what is its meaning, you'd get to the definition very easily. So here finite verbs said that these verbs are finite. Finite means these verbs are limited. Yes dear friends, they are finite. That means they are limited. So these verbs which are limited by some terms, they are called the finite verbs. Now I would ask you, do you know what are the terms with which these verbs are limited? Yes dear friends, the answer is very simple. These verbs are limited in terms of number 1, portion, number 2, tense, and number 3, number. So these verbs are limited in terms of portion, tense, and number. So finite, that means limited. So when the verbs are limited with portion, number, or tense, we consider them as finite verbs. So that's the point. That's the point to remember. Now if you can consider non-finite verb. So now if you consider non-finite verbs, so it's just the opposite. If finite verb is limited, non-finite verb is not limited, it's unlimited. Unlimited means it's not limited in terms of portion, number, or tense. Now which portion, whose number, whose tense to be considered? Portion and number of the subject to be considered, and the tense of the verb, that is the time of the action, to be considered. So for finite verbs, let's find out how it happens. First we discuss about portion. If I say you go, but when I say he, here I have to use goes. So follow this dear friends. You'd find it really easy. It's not very tough. When we consider this second person, the verb is go. When it gets third person, the verb becomes goes. So with the change of person, the form of the verb gets changed. So when the form of the verb gets changed with the change of the person, we consider it as finite verb. So we have found out how person limits this verb. Then comes number. Suppose you have written this sentence. He is a boy. He is a boy. So here I have used is. Now if I say they, now I would use they are boys. So here I am using are. So when the number of the subject changes, the form of the verb is also changed. So what comes here? Finally, we come to the decision that this verb is limited in terms of the number of the subject. So 2 points has been discussed. The first point is the verb is limited in terms of the person of the subject. The verb is limited in terms of the number of the subject. Now, the second point that we have left, yes, that's regarding the time of the verb. Let's find out how it works. If I say he goes, this is in present, so the time for the sentence is present. Now, if I change the time for the sentence, it would become he went. So here what happens? Here, with the change of the time, with the change of the time of the action, that means with the change of the tense, the form of the verb gets changed. That means this verb is limited in terms of the time of action, and this verb, when it changes with the time of the action, with the tense of the verb, obviously this is finite verb. Now, when we consider non-finite verbs, the non-finite verbs, these are again unlimited. Unlimited means if the portion of the subject, if the number of the subject, or if the time of the action changes, there won't be any change in the form of the verb. That's why they are not limited and they are considered as non-finite verbs. So non-finite verbs, these verbs are actually of 3 types. They are infinitives, then comes gerunds, and the third is participle. Yes, dear friends, these are the 3 non-finite verbs: infinitives, gerunds, participles. Now, let's begin with the infinitives, because infinitives are the most important here because of the term bare infinitives. When we get 2 infinitives, it doesn't matter. You get that this is 2 infinitive and the verb is non-finite verb. But when you get a bare infinitive, you get confused. You didn't understand whether this is a non-finite verb, whether this is an infinitive, or this is a finite verb. So what is this? You get confused. So it's better to discuss of infinitives first. So what happens when we take infinitives? We get 2 plus verb like I want to play. You don't want to learn anymore, you want to play. So when you say I want to play, here want, this is the verb. And to play, this is also a verb. Now the question is, which one, which verb? Okay, just add those points of limitation. If you change I into he, now you have to say he wants. So with the change of the person, the verb would get changed. Now, if you use they, plural number, we, there won't be any change. Okay, but if you change the tense, if you want to produce the same sentence in past form, you would say I wanted to play. So this verb, this particular verb want, it is limited in terms of person, in terms of number, in terms of tense. So this is obviously finite verb because it's limited. It's a limited verb. It's a finite verb. Now what happens for play? whether this is finite or non-finite, whether this is limited or not limited. We'd use the same strategy here as well. If we change the tense of the sentence, I wanted to play. If we change the number of the sentence, they want to play, we want to play, he wants to play. So whatever change we may bring here, I may say, I was wanting to play. I am wanting to play. I had wanted to play. I have wanted to play. He has wanted to play. Whatever change you may bring, but the verb won't change. Which verb? This verb, play. That's why this is non-finite verb. And with 2 plus verb form, this is infinitives. So that's how you'd find out only by using these 3 points whether the verb is changing in terms of person, in terms of number of the subject, or whether the verb is changing in terms of time of the action, that is the tense. So person, number, tense, these 3 points to be considered to get whether the verb is finite verb or non-finite verb. Yes, dear friend, it's really very easy. When the verb is not changing, it's non-finite, and when the verb is changing, it's finite. Yes, dear friends, and that's all from today. That's all from this presentation. If you have any other point in your mind, if you want to learn some other points of English grammar, if you have any chapter to be discussed here regarding English or something else, you may write down in the comment section, you may demand for this, and I assure you that I would bring that video very soon in this very channel. Until then, bye bye, happy learning.